today what I'll be doing is giving her 2 different types of pixels. We wanted something that spread in her fringe, but then down her part, we wanted to give her root pixels. So you'll get to see 3 different techniques using the same application, and it's foolproof. You cannot make a mistake if you follow the rules. So I'm gonna keep using the tape, and then I'll explain what my idea is for this when we come back to me.
All right.
Thank you. She's my biggest fan.
So yesterday, I was working with a razor. So I wanted to show you guys a little bit of versatility and show you both sides of how I work in the salon. And there's really 3 different ways that I work. I work wet with a razor, I work dry with a scissor, and then I also work wet with a scissor as well. And honestly, it's probably closer to 50-50 wet with a razor, dry with a scissor. But when I saw her hair, I was initially planning on cutting it dry. And if some of it may have like run into me yesterday, I was like, oh, I'm doing dry hair cutting on curly hair tomorrow. But then when we decided on the shape, I decided to change things up a little bit. She wears it both wet and dry. So she wears it both curly and straight, right? So she also wears it wet. She mists herself everywhere she goes, like a very Enrique look. You know? It's my look, mid-dewy. But it's like... But anyway, sorry, I'll get distracted by my own jokes. But so I decided to change the way I was going to do it specifically because she does wear her hair straight and she does wear it curly as well. If somebody wears their hair only curly, then I'm most likely going to cut it in its natural form, its natural state, when it's dry and I can see what the curl is doing. If she's going to blow it out and she's going to wear it curly, then I like to cut it wet so I can be a little bit more accurate with that and she can have more versatility wet to dry. So what we're doing right now is we're working a horizontal graduation here on the sides. So we have 3 different angles that we can take when we're cutting hair. We can take a vertical section, we can take a horizontal section, or we can take a diagonal section. And each one of these sections is going to do something different for us, right? So if we take a vertical section and we elevate and cut, it's going to flatten things out, make things look a little bit leaner. That's why a lot of the time when we're layering, we take vertical sections because we know, I'm going to turn so you guys can see that a little better. Because we know that we're trying to remove weight and add movement when we're layering. So in general, I would say we take a vertical section to layer the hair. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to give you the best angle there. So we take a diagonal section when we want to move hair around and kind of give it a direction so it can wrap around the head shape with diagonal sections well. And then when we want to build weight and have things look heavier and more full, we take a horizontal section generally. Just like Phil was saying with the pixels, if you take a horizontal section, you're going to make a more blunt line. If you take something more vertical diagonal, you'll get a little bit more diffusion. So we want to build this weight up, because what I'm planning on doing is building the shape on the side, graduated, to something that is curly and heavy on the top. So I want to make sure it doesn't get too flat, and I really want the curl to start to build and to come out a little bit more on top so she can start wearing her hair curlier and start, embracing her curl just a little bit more. Whenever I was in school, I had a mentor, a curly hair mentor named LaDonna, that said you can either embrace or erase your curl. And I said, I want to embrace my curl. That's why I do this. I used to flat iron my hair every day, and I would do chemical relaxers on my hair and everything because I wanted to have it in my face and be blind and then not be able to see anything.
Those scene days?
Yeah.
Jacob was an emo kid, for sure.
I didn't want people to see the eyeliner that I put on that day. But, so we're working horizontally at 45 degrees, and I've left out just a little baby disconnection right through here on the side. So when I took that first horizontal section, all I did was just visually pull that piece out. And we could leave that if we want, or we can come back and cut it off later. I like to have the option of cutting it off later on. We're elevating this hair using our previous section as a guide, so using the hair that's underneath as a guideline. And then we're going to rest our scissor right on our fingers, using our fingers as a platform, and work with only our still blade. So people talk to me a lot about this, about how I use my scissor and how I'm only working with my thumb. And, it's not something that I invented or, that is very different. You have 2 different blades on your scissors. So you have a still blade and then you have a movable blade, right? So we have this blade right here that doesn't move. And then we have our blade on top that does. We do an exercise all the time in class called skills and drills. Anyone go to Paul Mitchell? Is here? Yeah? So when I was in school, we learned skills and drills from a guy named Scott Cole. And that stuck with me throughout my entire career now. So first thing I want everyone to think about when they're practicing this at home is, where is your blade on your fingers? Is it out here by your
I love that you said at home.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good idea to practice at home. I don't mean practice in your salons. I mean practice at home. If you don't have a mannequin, if you don't have a stand, if you're only doing hair in the salon, then you're not doing hair enough. You need to be obsessed with doing hair and be doing it all the time.
Amen to that.
So if your scissors are out here on your pointer finger, you're going to have a little bit less control. It makes it harder to just use your thumb. So first thing you should do is put your hand in front of your scissors and just tuck them back just a little bit like that. And then open as wide as you can and then close your scissors. It doesn't matter if you go fast. If you're just going slow, that's totally fine. You want to build up the dexterity and the muscle memory here. So we're going to start in this position. And then once you have your speed, you can speed up a little bit. Then we're going to flip our scissors over and go this way, away from yourself, and towards yourself. And that's basically just practicing using your thumb in all the different hand positions that we might use when we're cutting hair. So for this one, we're working horizontally, palm to palm. So we're using our guide underneath, coming out at 45 degrees. So we're not taking this all the way flat to the head. We're actually building and getting a little bit longer as we go up towards the top. I'm going to check for my guide. I rest my scissor, and then we're just opening and closing our scissor right on our fingers, just like that. Pulling out, look for the guide. The tension is important. And we're opening and closing our scissors right on our fingers, just like that. And you can see I'm actually like glancing up at I'm glancing up at this like while I'm cutting, just because I'm interested to see how it looks on the video. But once you have that down and you are, cutting in your fingers, so like for example, we're going to layer this out in a second anyway, so I'll just give you one quick example through the top. If you're cutting in your fingers, you really shouldn't have to look at the scissor at all, and you can cut really nice and clean lines, right? So trust. Is there a bird? There's a bird in the room. So trust your dexterity. Practice. Don't just start looking away right away. But once you have that down, you should be able to use that platform to be incredibly accurate. And you shouldn't really ever cut yourself. You shouldn't have to worry about cutting yourself, You can see how clean and easy that can be as soon as you've practiced it and built up the muscle memory. So I'm going to continue horizontally through the sides. I'll repeat that on the opposite side, and then we'll come back a little later, and I'll show you guys what we're going to do next.
Okay, so I wanted to first talk about the tools and the products that I'm using. Who here uses Joico in the house? Yes, I love it. I love that Hillary, my assistant, raises her hand. You better. So I'm using Blonde Life by Joico. And what I love about Blonde Life is that you can really get 9 levels of lift while still maintaining the integrity of the hair. And of course, obviously, that is the most important part of doing hair, is maintaining the integrity of the hair. I don't care if my client is going to be like, oh, I have black hair and I believe in you, Larissa. I actually had someone tell me this one time. I believe in you, Larissa. You can get me to this shade. Yeah, I believe that your hair will fall off your hair or your head, So you obviously have to have common sense on what level to use, what liner to use. But I really love Blonde Life because it really does does lift really nicely, and it keeps your hair very, very healthy at the same time. So I'm using Blonde Life, and I'm starting off with 10 Developer. And then I'm using the Fremar brushes and foils. Who here uses Fremar in the house? Okay. I swear, once you try them, you will never, ever go back. And what I love about the Fremar brushes is that the bristles are so extremely soft and they have so many different sizes. In the salon, we call them Mama, Papa, and the baby brush. This is the Papa brush, this is the Mama brush, and then they have a smaller size brush as well. And they also have angle brushes as well. And the bristles are so extremely soft so that while you're balayaging, it literally does half of the job for you for blending. So I suggest you go try it out. They always sell out the booths, so run there after if you want to grab a couple brushes. And then also what I love about their foils is that, one, you don't even need an assistant for those of you that don't have an assistant because they pop right out. I love you, Hillary. So she's stuck with me forever, assisting me. Not really, but for now. But they're really great because now you don't have to cut them and all that. And what I really about them, also, if you use my harigami technique, this size is very, very important. This is a 5x10 size. And the reason why, for my harigami technique, for those of you that were here yesterday, or for my bold and blended technique, I fold the foils like this so that way you can go in the back of the head and round it completely so you can get to the root of their hair, okay? So 5x10 is very important for this size. Also, I love that it's embossed texture. So the minute you apply color or liner, it will not slip, and it will help you so much in the long run, okay? And then what else am I using? What else? I'm using the Mepco Diane comb, but that's not till later. I'll show you guys my baby light technique. And this comb is very important compared to my rat tail comb. It's because the teeth are much more wider. Okay, so when you're using the baby light technique that I'll be showing you later, you want to be using this comb because you'll be able to create really beautiful baby lights. Because if you use the rat tail comb, you're gonna basically wipe away all your beautiful work. Okay. Now this rat tail comb is really important. The one that I'm using for this technique is because it has a very long tail. Okay. And let me show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So let me finish this last section. And then I'll be able to tell you why the rat tail comb is so important. So if you haven't noticed, the way I'm taking her sectioning is much different than a particular, because this is kind of like a partial. Okay, so partial, we're so used to going like back to foils and having the foils kind of squared out, and then we fold them a million times and yada yada and call it a day. So the way I fold my foils is also differently. But why it's so important, this sectioning, is because when you take a long slice section, all of this will not be able to fit. You guys see that there's a 1/2 inch out, right? That you won't be able to fit. You guys, let me show you. You won't be able to fit in that full corner, okay? So now, the way I fold my foils, which I will show you right now, okay? I'm going to go in and I'm going to take my weave. And when I say weave, I mean like a few strands, okay? You don't want it to look stripy. Yeah, you can go in with the shadow root and kind of like save the day by that. But if you have a nice blended look already without the stripiness effect, imagine how much more beautiful and blended the color will look if you add a shadow root already on something that's already blended, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rat tail comb. I'm going to put it on the corner edge of my foil. And I'm going to put it like so. So that way it can completely cover the full coverage of my slice section. So this is actually going to be saving you time, you guys, because you don't have to go in and, one, use more foils, which is going to cost you more money, and two, you'll be able to take in much more longer slice sections, so that way you can go get it over with and go drink some wine at home or do your thing, right? Or take another client, okay?
Drink wine in the parking lot.
I mean, or that. Put it in your coffee cup like I do. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so anyways, so what I'm doing right now is I'm doing around her hairline. I just took normal baby highlights around the face, and I took like micro highlights around the face, because last thing you want, and let's be real, most of our clients wear their hair up, is it to look stripy when they pull their hair up, right? So you take very, very fine weave sections, our highlights when it's around the face. Then as I move my way up, I take a little bit, I don't want to say chunky because I kind of hate that word, but a little bit more bolder highlights. And then as I move my way up, my highlights are very close to each other around the hairline. Why? Because I want that face framing, bold, blended look, right? That money piece, as we call it, right? And as I move my way up with the highlights, I take my slice sections a little bit more thicker and thicker. So that way I have more face framing around the face and then more dimension towards the back. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the way I fold this foil is I'm going to fold it in one, like this. Then it's very important that you go over the crease. That way you have that ability to be able to bend it and then bend this corner just to ensure that it will not slip. You guys like that technique? Cool, right? All right, Phil. What are you up to, darling?
All right, so I decided that I wanted to just go a little crazy with my model. So
Go crazy.
Instead of doing some just on the roots or just in the fringe, which I'm going to do some in the back too, so no matter where you look or she looks, she's always going to have something going on. I'm almost done with the hardest part of the application. The hardest part, believe it or not, maybe even trying to figure out how many of these labels you still have left on your page, but or picking them off. So, you know, there is a secret. This isn't a hair technique, but if you fold these in half, when you rip them, you can actually, it'll leave like a little tab that you can just grab yours right off. So that's gonna already give you more than anybody ever taught me on how to do this process. So when you think about this, there's 3 different types of things that should inspire you. A, I'm obviously using tape on bottom and on top of the hair, just like tape and extensions. If you're good at those, you're gonna be good at this. The second thing is the reason that I'm using tape and my thought process behind it after I did it freeform was I really need a crisp, hard line. Where can I what can I use to do that? And I thought about people that paint like kitchens or cabinets. You put the paint in, you get all messy and crazy, and have a wine party with your friends, and you peel the tape off, and it's like you paid
Still
a
a
pro to do
perfect
it,
line.
right? It's still a perfect line. So, yeah. And I forgot what the other one is. I'll tell you later when I remember. But which one is it? You know my stick by now. It's either the extensions, the tape, and the hair cutting. Okay, so the idea is, and I'm sure she could probably do pixelated hair. She thinks she can't, but we've taught so much that,
I mean, we've only been on stage for like 4 years together. I think by now
yeah.
This
Should
is
know.
the last LPJ ever.
Hey, don't make me
performance right
cry right now, Jacob.
So you guys,
It's not
thank
the
you for
time.
coming to our last show.
now. Yeah.
Anyway, so we're all a little bit emotional about that anyway. But you don't want to use any elevation. You can see that I'm working through this. Well, let me show you the front. First of all, my two favorite applications, because they're so fast, are the bangs and the roots. The bangs, because you only need like 3 or 4 sections. So this is a traveling guide. My first section is the most important. You see, I'm not going to pull that up too high. You see how far these are from each other? I'm going to paint right in between those, okay? When my next section is 1/4 of an inch above, do you see how this tape is 1/4 of an inch above that, and this is 1/4 of an inch above that? The reason it's above is because my section moved up, and I'm doing the exact same thing in each section. So if you held these straight out, they would line up perfectly, but when you lay them down, they're staggered, okay? The design that you guys see and that everybody's used to seeing in pixelated hair is always me like parting it so that you can see what's inside. So if you do this at home, the 2 things that I would keep a secret is the parting, because if you show people that it looks like rectangles, it's not very impressive. But when you show them the finished look, like you wouldn't necessarily show somebody's hair that you didn't put styling product in. The styling and the flare comes from combing the hair. These are going to be so easy. I like this area in the head because the hair spreads on its own, so you really don't have to do much styling for it. The fringe is only usually 3 sections, and then tilt your head down. You guys see how I'm only doing 1 here? So what I'm going to do is bleach her roots from here to here. So I like this one because it takes half the time because you're only doing 1 tab on each one. Does that make sense? And then in the back, I'm going to do one that's here. The reason I like these 3 sections, and there's only one other section that I'll use, which is right here on the corner, is because this hair automatically doesn't live where I'm putting it. It is kind of, it starts off there, but then the hair spreads. Does that make sense? So go in the direction that the hair is going. Like down here, like say right here, this is going to be the top section in the back. Tilt your head up. This hair here is really important because if you do anything to this hair is not going to always sit right here. Sometimes it sits over here, sometimes it sits over here, and sometimes it sits over here. So when you're in the salon and you're trying to be really creative with some kind of color blocking method, something that'll give you like a lot of bang for a little bit of work, find areas where the hair lives in multiple places. I'd say the easiest way to remember it is staying away from the hairline, because this hair will never go this way on its own. Does that make sense? And this hair here is never going to go over here on its own. So the hairline is like a big no-no if you only have like 7 foils that you can put on a person. Does that make sense? This hair here, what I'm hoping, what you guys will see when we're finished, is that this hair here is going to spread, and she's going to have pixels from this side to the side, even though the section's only 2.5 inches wide. And she's going to have zigzags here. So when she moves her hair, do you see like the hair isn't going to stay like this? This hair is going to break apart, and it's going to move around, and it'll style itself. On the roots, what's going to happen is she's going to have pixels that we wanted it to kind of look like an arrow. So there's going to be pixels down her root and then pixels in her fringe like that. So it looks hard, but when you see me start to apply the lightener, it'll make a lot more sense. So I'm going to keep going and try to finish this and start applying lightener, and I'll tell you guys how to apply that when we get back.
All right, guys. So I am working through the back now, and I've decided to. So besides being more obsessed with curl, I've been obsessed with like a couple things recently, right? So I've been super obsessed with shags, stuff that has like a lot of layering, stuff that has fringe and a lot of curl, as you can see. Maybe some man bangs, some mangs, you know.
Bangs.
I've been obsessed with curly hair. I love when people will wear their hair natural and curly.
He's
And
basically obsessed with his hair right now.
I've
Let's
been
just say
kind of obsessed with mullets as well. Like even not like, super like Joe Dirt style mullet, which can be kind of cool, honestly. I saw one walking around the show, and I was like, oh, do you see that glorious mullet walking? You have to like tag it for study later on because you never know when you might see it again. But so what we've done is we've worked horizontally through the side. We can start to see that shape in the profile. And then we're working diagonally through the back and starting to angle out a little bit like that. So it will flatten out against the head shape, but then gives us something soft and fringy around the neckline. And then we're going to work with disconnection through the sides and the top. So it's going to be a similar shape to what we did on Shelby yesterday, but something that's going to be maybe a little bit more loose and has some more softness and fringiness on the bottom. So we are using the side that we cut originally as a guide. We're over-directing, and at first, we're kind of just cutting in a diagonal line, just like that. And then as we come down to the side, I am rotating out a little bit more so that I can increase the length, and we're getting all this extra length and weight in the center, but it gives us this really nice kind of contour around the head shape, which I think that makes for a really pretty profile. Would you mind if we back the camera up a little bit so we can see the whole profile? So we can see the neckline too? He says no. But you guys can see off the camera. It's fine. But yeah, so we can see what kind of a profile that can give us. There we go. So yeah, I love all the softness here. I love the curl even coming out right here. He has this little, orthodox look going on. But maybe we'll take that down a little bit. But I also like the fringiness through here. So then you'll notice that I don't pre-section out a lot while I'm cutting. So I haven't gone and said, like, I'm going to take this section, this one, clip this up, and clip that up over there, just because I change my mind a lot while I'm cutting, So initially... Initially, I was thinking of taking it all down tight through here, but then as I was cutting, I decided that I liked the hairline a little bit fringier, and I thought it could be an interesting look to leave it longer in the back. So if I had pre-sectioned all of that out, I would have to re-section that out anyway as I went. So I usually only work with maybe 2 clips, and I section things progressively as I go. So we're going to work maybe just a little bit more through the center back. Now that we have everything taken out, I'm still thinking about this as being disconnected. So we're going to take out kind of a V shape here and work with that as our disconnection, just kind of saving that weight. Even if we decide to add some in later on, for now, we're going to save it. I'm kind of a safety hair cutter like that. I'd rather leave it out and then come back and cut it off later because there's not much you can do after you cut it off. If you
can glue it back on.
You're just like, okay, here's a hat. Bye. So this is maybe a little too heavy for me, just right in the very center back down here. Camera guy loves Larissa, but there we go. So I'm just going to come across, but I also want to make sure that I leave this stuff out. I don't want to cut any of that off, but I think that the weight is too heavy in the center. So we're just going to change the angle a little bit. And it took me a while to get comfortable doing things like that. As far as just, right now, I'm not following any guide. I am creating a new guide and working with disconnection right underneath that, which I think when we're in school, we're very obsessed with like, okay, got to follow my guide, got to make sure this is perfect, got to make sure everything connects, or, I don't know, they're going to take my license away and send me to jail. But really, as I've developed my own style of cutting and my own aesthetic for my clients, I use disconnection on so many different people. I use it, probably 90% of the haircuts that I do now, I incorporate disconnection in some way, just because I think it makes things look more interesting. It adds a really cool movement, and it just gives you like a lot more shapes that you can do when you don't have to connect everything together. And a lot of people will say to me, Jake, my clients are very conservative. They don't want disconnection. And you know how many clients they say that they'll never let me do that. But you know how many clients I ask if I can do disconnection on them? None. I just go and start doing it. Because, it's like I don't use hairdressing terms with my clients or anything. I'm not like, we're going to do a round, graduation with it disconnected and we're going to, hold at 45 degrees. I'm like, what do you want to look like? You know what I mean? Like, what do you want it to look like? I'd rather talk about the look and the style than talk in hairdressing terms. It's like, okay, well, I recommend a surgeon. So we're going to continue through this way, and then I'm actually going to dry the top, bring out her natural curl so I can see how that's looking, and then we'll work dry with a curl through the top. But you can see taking that weight down a little bit more is starting to lean that shape out. And I just completely disconnected at the bottom. But it blends through just fine. And if you ever notice that something looks a little heavy or it's not blending quite right, if you see weight, elevate. Lift things up just a little bit higher.
Likes to rhyme.
If you see weight,
do that to my
elevate,
stomach?
and you can find a corner. Yeah. So I've just been trying to bend. I've been lifting Phil into the air, and he's been just getting a lot thinner. I'm just going to continue that same thing to the other side, removing this weight, and then we'll come back and talk about the top as soon as it's dry.
Ooh, it's my turn. Yay. Okay. So as you guys can see, I'm already done with her foiling. And how quick is that? And, you know, obviously I'll be done much quicker if I wasn't talking and whatever. So, again, this should be your fastest service and your lowest rate service, in my opinion, because this is kind of like a partial. So even though it doesn't look like a partial, we got to stay innovative. So with our clients, don't be like, oh, we're going to give you a partial. Tell them, like, we're going to give you some face framing, blah, blah, blah. And then when they see the foiling, they're like, oh, my God, she's doing something totally different. And in reality, it's just the way you're folding your foils, okay? So we got to think of an innovative way of not only talking to our clients, but also of, like, you know, just even little things like foiling. So I'm right now using clay lightener now by Free Play by Joico. And I'm using 40 Developer. So on her foils, I just started off with Blonde Life 10 and worked my way up to 20. And now on her mid to ends, I'm using 40 with the clay lightener. Okay, so that way it can all catch up, and that way I can freehand and be able to balayage her. So the first three sections of her mid to ends, I'm completely saturating from top to bottom, if you guys haven't noticed. Again, I just want to mention that this is not the right way or the wrong way. This is my way. So I want you guys to be able to take in whatever it is that I'm teaching you and then mix it into your own little groove of techniques and kind of make it your own, because we are all artists, okay? So now I want to show you guys with my comb what I mean by baby lights, okay? So now I'm going to be surface painting the rest of her hair. So surface painting meaning it's just like, you know, just grazing on the top of her hair and not fully saturating, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, as if you haven't noticed, I'm applying lightener on my wrist. Reason being is because you go back and forth, that's going to take up a lot of time over time, right? And time is money, right? And we all like that paper, all right? We also like a lot of time and a lot of wine. All right.
Time is an illusion.
So another reason is because I am a control freak, okay? And I like to be able to control exactly how much is on my brush. And also, the consistency is going to be nice and smooth on my brush at all times, okay? Because if you grab it from here, it's going to be chunky. You apply it on there, it's going to seep in, and you're causing yourself a color correction. And that is the last thing you want. This is supposed to be a very easy technique. So I always say less is more. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to grab a little bit of lightener and apply on her mid to ends. And then when it comes to highlights or anything like that, every time I always go in and I go against the grain when I'm finishing my balayage or my highlights, okay? Going against the grain is going to give you a slight tease, and it's going to give you that really nice blend. And if you notice that I'm going slightly up higher, diagonally back, and that way we have more brightness around the face and more deepness and dimension towards the back, okay? So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this little piece out, and I'm going to take care of that later. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to take my comb, and I'm going to show you guys my baby light technique, all right? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to use the first 2 or 3 teeth of your comb. You're going to put your index finger on the top of the comb, and you're going to slightly bend it and think light as a feather. You do not want to go in and dig. You just want to slowly pull it out. So you guys see, let me show you around, so you guys can see very closely. And I'm just going to go in, and I'm going to bring down a little bit more, wipe it down. So the further you are towards the back of the head, the more you're going to want to bring the comb down, okay? And then I'm going to slightly not bring it down as low, not even as low, okay? And then you guys want to see? You guys see those beautiful baby lights happening right there? And how simple is that? Okay, and the thicker section you take, the more of a nicer baby light effect you're gonna have. This is gonna be much more saturated still, but you'll still be able to have like that highlight look. Okay, I'm always gonna clean my hands, and a little tip for you guys: I always make sure that I have a wet towel. Wet towel just cleans your hands much quicker. Again, saving time. Little things like that save a lot of time. All right, make sure that your hands are clean. Put on the palm of your hair if you are surface painting, and then go in and just finish it off by surface painting. If you have clean hands, clean sections, clean results, right? Okay. Now, as I move my way down towards the sections of her hair, I'm going to slowly, gradually bring the balayage lower and lower. So I brought it up much more higher up here, right, her balayage. And then as I'm moving down here, I'm going to bring it lower so that she has that nice gradual blend with the baby lights over it. You guys can picture how beautiful that blend will be. And then you're going to go in and shadow root it a little bit. Give her that nice, gorgeous blend. For me, my trick is to shadow root about 2 shades darker so it can kind of blend in with her natural base. And again, can give her that nice gradient blend. That's the word, right? So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And Phil, what are you up to?
All right, so I am going through, and now I finished my sectioning. Everything is ready. I can literally just whip through this, pass this off to an assistant, and all they have to do is color in between the lines. Even if they color outside the lines, it doesn't matter. This is going to be here for you to do perfect hair each time. Now, pixelated hair is an amazing service to be able to know how to do, because how many of you have ever had that client that will do anything but their ends can't do anything? You know, like they want to be a little creative, but they don't necessarily. Being creative is going to mean to cut a lot of their length off because it can't handle being lifted. You can't get that old color off their hair. This, you know, if you can learn how to create a hard line, I can tell you, you guys saw my model with a few of you saw my model with the curly hair yesterday. I put a hard line in her hair when her hair was curly, and then in my Insta story right after this, I'm gonna play a video. She actually flat ironed her hair later, and how blended it became because I used the elevation of the natural curl to blend it when it was straight. So she has straight lines when it's curly and really blended when it's straight. To apply this, the thing that you need to know, because I'm taking sections, the sectioning that I'm taking is just slightly to where you feel like maybe the color's not going to penetrate through, or you might have a problem. For everybody, it's different. For somebody with really skinny hair, you have to take a lot more hair. And for somebody with really dense hair, you need to take a lot less hair. But I do prefer to work on darker canvases because they show much more contrast, right? Right?
Right.
The thing that you need to know, apply lightener onto the foil first before you put it on. It's right in there. Even if you get it on the tape, it's okay because that's your protection. Then put some lightener on top. When you get to the edge where there's any of these tapes, start there and go away from it so that you don't actually accidentally push any color through. This is probably the fastest service when you see this done and you see it styled. It looks like it was really hard. Does anybody think that this is really hard? No, it's now the magic is gone. I used to be a magician before I was a hairdresser, and I hate revealing magic tricks to people because then it's
No joke, he really was.
It's not cool anymore.
Jacob was a
right?
comedian.
We asked if we could use like a fire and be like, ha, or whatever on the stage, and they said no.
I wanted to saw Larissa in half. But this is going to be really quick. I've got one more section on the top and 5 more in the back, and I'm going to finish these in a minute and a half. But since I'm just doing the same thing, I want to pass it back to you, Jake, if you have anything else you want to say.
All right, so I am done the fastest diffuse blow dry of my life, I think, just now. I think it took 2 minutes that we took to diffuse it. I love her natural curl. Don't you guys think it looks so cool? It's like really disheveled, really messy, really fun. And I haven't done anything to the top yet, but you can see the end result already looks really interesting. It looks a little bit different, a little bit creative, but not too creative that it's just like, what is happening with that haircut? You know, like, why did you do all those crazy things, you know? So, and I think that when I first started doing hair, that was a lot of what I was doing was all the stuff that I was doing. I wanted to be creative. I wanted to run before I even, like, knew how to crawl, you know? So it was like, however many disconnections, how many disconnections can I put on this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now it's an octopus, and I don't even know what's happening. So I tried to like reel myself in a little bit, and my creativity, I still want things to be interesting, but I want them to be really aesthetically pretty. So working with her natural texture, I enhanced some pieces a little bit with the iron, just doing some wraparound stuff, specifically because I don't have a lot of time to actually do the diffuse. And then she's pre-lightened under this, and then we took her back down to closer to her natural. So she had like kind of a highlighted thing going on. It's feeling very dry, which if you're curly, you know that sometimes lightening your hair can really affect the way the curl behaves. So once we take it back down, we can see where does the hair start to get a little bit less curly. And I'm actually going to freehand cut some of those pieces off, literally just lifting them up and seeing like what is not behaving and like what is being kind of weird. And I'm literally just going to come in and take these pieces off using the inside of my scissor. And sometimes I'll even lift up and just look at what the shape is doing. And if I see something that I'm like, okay, this could come off, that can come off, I will literally just freehand it off, you know, until the curl comes back to life. Just looking only in those areas where it's too damaged for the curl to actually behave the way you want it to. And then we can define the curl by looking for where is there kind of a bend in the curl, where is there like a bend in the coil, and that's where I work in taking the length off so it will work with how the curl naturally wants to behave, and it's never trying to force it to do something that it doesn't want to do.